Steve, we can't talk about spring training without talking about some of the early bumps and bruises because that's kind of what the beginning of the season is about. We got Zach Britton and Todd Frazier both dealing with oblique injuries. What do these early injuries actually mean, though, for the team in the regular season?
Yeah, throw into the mix. I was down there, got a little sunburn as well. So you got to worry about these injuries in
For
spring
you.
training. I mean, yeah, you have Josh Donaldson with a calf injury. Look, the time of year you worry the least about these injuries is when you've got 40 days before opening day. You tend to think, I have time, we'll let them settle down. It really comes down to now the treatment. This is where you have the ability to be ultra conservative. Let it heal. You don't want a nagging injury, and you don't want the recurrence of the injury. Even if you have to miss, yeah, I know opening day is magical for everybody, and I know players want to be there, but I would never force it. The key is don't lose a key player, for 30 days at a time, 40 days at a time. If you miss a week, you miss 2 weeks, that's one thing, but you don't want to push it to where you end up blowing it out. Zach Britton's too important to the Orioles to take any risks at all, certainly this early in camp. And always for a closer, it's always hard to figure out how to get them prepared for the season anyways, because with a closer, remember, you can't manufacture the ninth inning of a regular season game. If your closer pitches the ninth inning in spring training, he's facing A-ball hitters because all the veterans are out by then. And if you pitch him earlier in the game to face the better hitters, well, then you're not having the energy of what it's like to pitch the ninth. So there's plenty of time for relievers to get ready. Britton will be okay. Frazier will be okay. Donaldson will be okay. Even if they miss opening day, you just don't want that lengthy absence, which can cripple the season.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point about opening day, too. I know fans get caught up in it. I know I loved it. But when you think about it, maybe it's the most overrated day in the baseball season because you have 162 games to go. It is a grind, the long haul. Better to just have these guys rest than be out there for the one game that is opening day, as magical as it may be, Steve.
No question about that. And look, I get it. I mean, we all, you prepare all off season, you're looking ahead to opening day, and players fight to get back there for it. And sometimes you have to protect the player against himself and just say, listen, we're not going to force this. We cannot afford to lose you. There's a way to make the player feel good about himself and his importance to the team while selling him the fact that opening day is probably not in the cards. And you can bring him up to be there for the introductions, to get the sort of recognition with the fans, but protect the body because that is what's critical. Look, everybody shows up in spring training feeling good, but after that, something hurts. You just don't want it to turn into an injury. You have to know the difference between pain and injury.